everyone. Welcome back inside Centura Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones. And coming up on today's episode, the Broncos were back at practice as they look to turn the page towards Sunday versus the Washington Commanders. We'll hear from head coach Sean Payton, quarterback Russell Wilson, and several other players today as they look ahead. All that and more coming up. The Broncos look to turn the page today as they return to practice and look ahead to Sunday's matchup versus the Washington Commanders. And looking back at their Week 1 game versus the Raiders, head coach Sean Payton said offensively they weren't able to create explosive plays. So that's the focus this week, and they're hoping to fix that come Sunday.
I called probably 3 or 4 explosive. The intent is an explosive play or a shot play. Sometimes the coverage dictates it that it's not. We run the Olay pump and we kind of catch it. We just nick the sideline. We're out of bounds there. We got pressured on one of them. Russ had to, get rid of it quickly. There's certain looks you call it for, and then maybe you get out of the looks if you're not getting what you're looking for. And then some of them you feel good about regardless of what you see. So that being said, though, just and it doesn't have to be a 50-yard touchdown pass, a 20-yard, 30-yard completion or a big run. At some point, those things lead to, and I'm all for a 17-play drive, don't get me wrong, but I'm also like a 5-play drive.
Quarterback Russell Wilson added to that by discussing how they hope to create more explosive plays in the passing game and what it would mean to get wide receiver Jeudy back.
Well, Jerry's obviously such an explosive player. I think we had some great opportunities last week. We had Phil down the side. We almost had that one. That would have been a huge one. Great momentum there. But we've had some other plays too. We're trying to get to. And unfortunately, we didn't get to all of them. But with only 6 possessions. But I thought we had some really good plays. Obviously, when we got to the red zone, even though we had those long drives, we had some good explosive plays in the red zone with obviously Cortland and LJ and just. Maybe not distance-wise, but just excitement and guys getting open, making some great plays. So we definitely aren't gun-shy, that's for sure. Definitely not afraid to attack down the field, but also to take what the defense gives us and be successful with that as well.
We also heard head coach Sean Payton talk about how close Jeudy was to playing in Sunday's game, that it truly was a game-time decision. We also heard Jeudy talk about how he feels this week.
And I get it sometimes, you guys, when I say game day, but he was a game day decision. And hamstrings are tricky, though. The idea of possibly getting set back 2 or 3 more weeks, but he was close. We actually had a workout pregame, to go through it and made our decision off that.
I'm just taking it day by day, just keep stacking them days, and just keep getting better.
Head coach Sean Payton and Russell Wilson also talked about Washington's defensive front and how talented they are, especially their interior players.
They create a lot of minus plays. Just looking at the cut-ups, you'll see 2nd and 12s. I'm not even talking about rushing the passer, just within the framework of the run game. They're real active. They're athletic. All of those guys have had obviously great college careers. A lot of them are first-round draft picks that are playing well, and the defense kind of feeds off that. So they're a handful. You got to look closely at what you want to do in the running game, and then certainly in the protections as well.
Yeah, the Commanders, they have a great defensive line. They got some great players on the other side. I've played them before. These are the real forces. They're great competitors. Got a lot of respect for them. They move really well. They're physical. They can stop the run game. They're really good in terms of the passing game, trying to get to the quarterback as well. It'll be a great opportunity for our offensive line as we got a really talented offensive line. Got some really big guards in there and cushion there too as well, especially with their interior. And so it should be a great matchup. It'll be a great challenge and great opportunity for us.
And now it's time to take a look at today's injury report. Tight end Greg Dulcich did not participate on a Wednesday. And outside linebacker Frank Clark, wide receiver Jeudy, defensive tackle DJ Jones, and cornerback Riley Moss were all limited at practice. Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio is fellow team reporter Phil Milani. Phil, thanks for hopping on the show today.
Sid, thank you very much. Always happy to be here. It must be Wednesday.
Yes, it is. Because you're on the show.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, a lot to talk about today. We'll start with some of the transactions. Head coach Sean Payton said that they placed Caden Stearns on injured reserve today. So kind of want to talk about the safety depth. Of course, PJ Locke is also on IR right now, won't be back for several weeks. So we got Delarian Turner-Yell and JL Skinner. What do you think about those guys, and how do you hope to see them step up?
Yeah, we'll have to see what they're able to do. JL Skinner is a kind of guy that, has a lot of potential, but he came into the offseason program with a little bit of an injury there, coming out of Boise State. And then seems like they like his potential, but maybe he's not quite ready to be like thrown into a major role just yet.
Yeah.
And then what do they call him? Trey? Turner-Yell there, but they call him Trey. I think he might be able to step up and play a little bit more here. And then also the guy on the practice squad, Key. I'm spacing on Devin Key. Yep. He's a guy who brings a big physical element, and you could see him maybe come up on game days and play a little bit. I just remember one hit in that final game against the Rams where I was like, this guy can bring it a little bit. So,
I remember that too.
Those guys, somebody's going to have to get in the mix a little bit there to just provide some depth. Otherwise, I just imagine that K-Jack is going to play a lot more snaps than initially anticipated, because I sort of think that the vision there was Justin is for sure the safety that's going to be out there every single play. And then on the other side, I think they were thinking about a combination of Caden Stearns and K-Jack. And now that Caden sounds like he's done for this season.
Yeah.
Sean Payton sort of said that at the very end of his press availability on Wednesday. So it does seem like he's going to be done for the season. So now I expect to start, K-Jack's just going to play a lot more than initially anticipated. And then one of those other guys is going to have to step up a little bit.
Yeah, reports were saying that Caden Stearns tore a patellar tendon.
Yeah.
Which I Googled that, Phil. And basically he tore part of his kneecap, the kneecap that connects with the top of his shin.
That sounds painful.
Really painful. And you could tell he was in a lot of pain.
Yeah, I think he was in a lot of pain. And then also I think that you feel bad for Caden because it was such a promising offseason for him.
Yeah.
It seemed like he was finally really healthy and ready to go. And
he's primed to have a good year.
Yeah, and you just think about like a guy's sort of career, how fast things happen in the NFL where you're drafted, you're here, you think you're going to have this long career. You never know what's going to happen. And, this was supposed to be the year for Caden, year 3. He was going to like really take off. So I think the disappointment of that, we wish him a speedy recovery and,
100%.
Hope that he gets back out on the field sooner rather than later. And, we'll finally get a chance to see that potential. But things just happen so fast that now already 3 years of his professional career are just over.
Right. Yeah, like you mentioned, wishing him a speedy recovery there. Phil, within that same transaction, the Broncos activated wide receiver Lil Jordan Humphrey to the active roster. So nice to see him make the 53 after last week's game, getting the touchdown there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that he's showing what he can do out on the field. When he first came to the Broncos, it seemed like, Marquez Callaway was sort of the guy, and then we'll see what Lil Jordan Humphrey can do. Guys that Sean was familiar with from his time in New Orleans. But really, LJ Humphrey was the more consistent player all throughout training camp. And then in the preseason, he made a few plays there. And then, of course, last week, the touchdown. So I think consistency is what's important there. And, he really showed it. And he made the big touchdown play. And hopefully, we'll see if he can continue that on now as part of the active roster.
Yeah, definitely. Sticking with the wide receivers here, Phil, we saw Jeudy. He was limited at practice again today, but we talked to him in the locker room following practice, and he said he's feeling good, still kind of day by day, getting better every day. What do you think it would really mean just to have him back this week?
Yeah, he didn't want to give a percentage on where he was. He was like, I'm not going to tell you that, but, he was out there more a part of practice on Wednesday. Sean Payton was asked about him. He said that, look, he was really a game time decision and that they put him through a little bit of a workout before the game and then they made a call. And I think that the big thing with a hamstring is everybody reacts a little bit differently to them.
Right.
So, not every hamstring injury is the same. And then I think the big thing is you don't want this to linger. You got to be 100% healthy, then return to play, because it's not one of those things that you can sort of fight your way through. Especially at this point in the year, you don't want this to be every week he's limited, Yeah. You just don't want that to be. So
needs to get back to 100% first. Right.
they made the decision, hey, he's not 100%. We're not going to play him out there. And maybe it's just a fact of, like, if he was a game time decision last week, one more week of rest here, you would think that that's a positive sign, him trending toward being able to go on Sunday against Washington.
Definitely, yeah. Well, we heard head coach Sean Payton and Russell Wilson talk earlier in the show about explosive plays and trying to create more of those out there. And maybe, Jerry's absence in the last game kind of contributed to that. So maybe we'll see more of that this week if he is able to go. Yeah.
When I watch football around the league and I see these other teams, it seems like every team has like a guy who is like a bailout type of player.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to throw it in his direction and just trust him to take care of the rest, and Jerry is that guy for the Broncos. It feels like that he's that kind of explosive weapon that he can do things where, say Russ is in trouble. Where's Jerry? I'm going to throw it in his direction and just trust that a play is made there. It feels like Jerry Jeudy can be that guy for the Broncos, and him not being there and then Greg Dulcich going down, that really took away two of the top three weapons for Russ in that game. And, you talk about just having 6 possessions, and then things not going well in the second half. Well, hey, a big difference was that Greg was gone and Jeudy was already out. So if he's able to go this week, Jerry, that's going to be a big deal for the Broncos. And creating those explosive plays downfield. After the game, Sean Payton said that, look, the Raiders played this soft shell, really limited their ability to do that. But he also mentioned that, hey, I called like 4 or 5 plays that were designed to be explosive. That Philip Dorsett play, Russell Wilson brought that up a couple of times. Hey, if you're able to connect there, that's a big play. So
for sure,
it did seem like there were a couple of opportunities for them to connect on that. The Cortland Sutton pass interference play, if they're able to hit that, that would be considered an explosive. So it feels like whenever there are those opportunities, they really got to make sure they connect. Definitely. And so, like the Dorsett, if he's inbounds, who knows how that game unfolds? You know what I mean? So it's a game of inches. If they can just be a little bit more exact, I think Sean Payton used that word on Wednesday. We got to be a little more exact, is what he said. If the Broncos can do that, then maybe some of these things will get a little cleaned up.
Definitely. Phil, looking at the run game, I know we heard from Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine following practice in the locker room. I know you talked to Javonte specifically. How do they get more of those explosive runs as well? Because I know this week is going to be really tough at the Commanders' defensive line. They're a really, really solid group.
It did seem like a couple of times when they got outside, those guys, Javonte and Samaje, they were able to have some success. And whether that comes from a handoff or just a screenplay, or you just get those guys in open space, then they can really go to work. And it was just great seeing Javonte out there.
It really was.
Russell Wilson talked about the play where he, put his hand on the ground, bounced up, and kept going.
Got back up.
Stiff arm. He looked like the Javonte from 2 years ago. So I think that those two guys can be really big weapons in both the running game and passing game. I expect the Broncos to get those guys involved in some screenplays and some design stuff on the outside, because you get them out there, that's when you could really get 20, 25 yards. Samaje had the run or the catch and then went up the sideline there.
Yeah,
those are big plays. And especially because if it's a mismatch where maybe you have a slower linebacker who's trying to chase Javonte to get over there with him, Javonte's going to win. If it's a smaller safety or something, Javonte's got a good chance to break a tackle, stiff arm a guy. So those guys can be big time mismatches out there. Same way like a tight end is. And I think Sean Payton likes to use them, and I expect him to use Samaje and Javonte that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be exciting to see kind of how their roles evolve as they get used to Sean Payton's offense over the next coming weeks.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Phil, I know you talked to Javonte, and he was, asked him kind of about what it was like getting tackled again. I know he did in the preseason, but now that it's the regular season too, he said didn't hurt at all.
Yeah.
Felt good.
I think the biggest thing is, okay, you go out there in preseason, do it. You're just getting through that game. And then you're like, okay, how do I feel here?
Yeah.
The regular season is like a whole different thing because you're playing the entire game and then boom, you're getting ready for the next game right away.
For sure.
The weeks.
You don't have time to really think about it and
it starts
process
snowballing a little bit here where it's like, okay, you just played the Raiders. Now you lose that game by 1 point.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of pressure on the Broncos to win game 2. You don't want to start 0-2.
Especially not at home.
Yeah, 2 games at home. All of a sudden you're into the next week and the thing starts rolling here a little.
True.
And so for a guy like Javonte coming off of that game, you're like, okay, how did my knee feel? Am I ready to go again right away?
Yeah.
And he said that he's learned from guys who previously got hurt. They told him, hey, even if it doesn't feel bad, continue to rehab that knee. Don't wait for it to feel sore.
Right.
Stay on
Just keep
top of
doing
it.
it.
So Javonte's in here doing that work.
Wow.
In addition to getting ready to face Washington, he's continuing his knee rehab all throughout the week. And, that's the kind of commitment it takes to come back from an injury like that.
Definitely. That's great to hear for sure.
Yeah. So I expect him to be a huge part of this offense.
I agree.
And you can kind of see.
We missed him last year.
Yeah, you can kind of see Sean Payton or like Russell Wilson. They get a little excited when you bring up his name. And I think that they're going to continue to figure out ways, especially as he gets stronger and stronger, to use him more and more.
Yeah. Yep. Will be exciting. We'll see what happens this Sunday. Phil, appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Sid. This is a big one. You look at the statistics and teams that start 0-2, it puts a lot of pressure. Yeah. So you got to, it's like less than 50% of those teams make the playoffs. 1-1, it's still less than 50%. It's like 42% or something.
Okay.
But then if you're 0-2, that drops all the way down to like 11%.
Oh, wow.
So you're facing an uphill battle.
Yeah.
One of Sean Payton's teams did that, though, in New Orleans. They started 0-2 in 2017. Then they ran off 8 straight wins.
Wow.
So
made the playoffs
it's
that
not
year.
impossible. You make the playoffs. I think that team went to the divisional round and lost to Minnesota that year. But
so
it's
not impossible.
Right. But
that's key.
You want to win this game, I think, if you're the Broncos and just bounce back and show, hey, that was just a 1-point loss.
Yeah.
Let's
it was
flip
a weird
the script.
game. First game was a weird game.
6 possessions.
Yeah.
You're facing Jimmy G there. Now they got Sam Howell coming in. It's a little bit of a different deal. And you want to get this one at home.
Definitely. Well, we'll look to do it on Sunday.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Thanks, Sid. Appreciate it.
And Broncos fans, don't forget, Paramount Plus is your streaming home to catch every local NFL and CBS game this season. Visit ParamountPlus.com to start your free trial and stream Russell Wilson and the team as they battle the league's best. Plus, get an all-access pass to 24/7 NFL content with CBS Sports HQ, Fantasy Football Today, NFL Slime Time, and more. And this year, Paramount Plus is your streaming destination for Super Bowl 58. Another action-packed Broncos season with NFL and CBS awaits, so stream Paramount Plus from any device all season long. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now, Broncos Country. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube tomorrow for another episode.